Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're listening. And thank you so much for joining us today for The Bend. My name is Debbie Boone, and I am your host. And today I am so happy to share with you Shawn Wilkie. Now, Shawn and I connected through his company, Talkatoo, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But this app is such a game changer for me that I am super excited about it. And I want to let everybody know about it because it types for you. And I type a lot. And so it's typing for me. And I'm extremely happy. And it types a lot faster than I do too. But to give you a little bit of Shawn's background, he is a serial entrepreneur and technology enthusiast. Sure. He can lead, sell, and get things done. He has 20 years of experience in technology companies. He was a finalist for Ernst & Young's prestigious Entrepreneur of the Year award in 2018. When he's not working, he wants to be where the action is as a volunteer firefighter and an avid traveler. So thank you very much, Shawn, for agreeing to spend some of your very valuable and limited time with us tonight. And thank you for coming to The Bend.
Debbie, it's super great. I know we've talked about this for a little while, and I'm super happy to be joining you. Thanks for having me.
Shawn is in Canada, Halifax. I am in South Carolina. So we have a little time challenge. So we've managed to work that out. This is kind of a late evening session for me, but I'm a night owl, so it's all good. So I'm going to ask you, Shawn, just to start out, what was your original goal? I mean, when you were a young man, did you say, oh, I want to be a firefighter? Did you say, I want to be a computer wizard? What did you say you wanted to be?
Yeah, that's a funny question, and I knew the answer right away when we were talking about this at the start. So, yeah, so I always wanted to be a lawyer. So as a kid, that was the thing that that I always would say when asked that question. But funny story, a little side note. I couldn't pronounce the word lawyer. So when I was, 3, 4, 5, I wanted to be a liar when I grew up. So,
well, I'm not going to make a comment there, but it does play out that maybe there's a lot of synonym to that liar lawyer deal with
it's so
especially
funny,
with some
right?
of it. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
But,
my grandparents still remind me of that. I think every time I go to their house.
but what career path did you follow to meet that goal? Did you continue on with that? I mean, I grew up, I wanted to be a veterinarian from the time I was 5, and I went to NC State and got a degree in animal science. Did you follow that lawyer path?
No, no, it didn't. Completely abandon it, and probably haven't thought of it much up until you've asked me. But yeah, my career path was an interesting one. So, growing up in rural Canada, with my folks were, they were lower middle class at best, I would say, and so there was some struggle when I was a kid, and so what happened because of that is I got this, just complete and utter desire to make sure that I didn't end up like a lot of people in rural Canada do. And so it was motivated from a really young age to just do whatever I could do to make a dollar, whether that was cut lawn or clean a car or anything at all. And so, at a really young age, 13, I started my first business. It was like an ice cream stand. Um, and then then it was two, and then I had a consulting company when I was 16 because I was good with computers, and then I went to university, to St. Francis Xavier University, great school up in Canada. And I had the opportunity to leave that gig at university and go out west, where everybody in Canada from the east goes to work in the oil patch at the time. So I went out there, got a job, worked there for a year. And my intention was always to go back to school after the summer, but I stayed a year. And then everything went sideways. I had an opportunity to move to Europe with a girlfriend, moved to Europe, traveled around, got the travel bug, spent all my money after 6 months traveling around Europe, came home and lived with my parents, and then went back to school. And I studied entrepreneurship and business management at one of the community colleges in Canada. And after that, I started an IT company. So I was 21 years old, I think, when I started this company. And I sold that company just about 12 months ago, December of last year. And that company, I grew it to a couple locations. We had about 20 staff, and we did manage IT services for, businesses. But and this is a loaded question you asked me, Debbie, because the answer, I'm trying to make it shorter as I'm speaking here, but it's a long answer. And so, during the course of running that IT company, I started a real estate business. And it had a bunch of apartment buildings and rentals. And then, kind of that was a consistent thing in my life, and it's still around. I still have a couple of apartment and vacation rentals. But during that path, I also started another company alongside with Google, called Sheepdog, and we integrated their software for Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies. And then, started another IT company. And then, after a break in Asia, somewheres along the way, came back to Canada and got involved in speech recognition. And I've got just over 2 years into Talkatoo now, and it's the only thing I'm doing, which is really exciting. It's the first time in my career, that spans about 20 years in technology, where I'm doing one thing. And it's a lot, running this software company. We're 15 staff now, and in 2 years we've gone from two people, me and my co-founder, to 15. And we're hiring a couple more right now. So we're experiencing some rapid growth, but that was the shortest way I could answer that question.
Well, I find that very interesting that you started working when you were very young, because in a lot of the people that I have interviewed, that's a really consistent message that they started doing things when they were young children. I personally started working in my family's restaurant when I was 12. I was running the cash register and seating people as a hostess. And then when I went to college, I would come home every weekend and I would wait tables. And that was the money that I would spend all week at school. And then would come back and make some more money. That's the greatest thing about being a waitress, is that you always have more money coming to you when you, especially when you're a kid, because you can spend it and you don't have to worry about living expenses out of it.
Oh man, weren't those the days?
Oh my gosh, yes. But
What am I
also
going to spend
really,
it all on?
really, yeah, really great training for dealing with the public and dealing with situations that happen in business. Because if somebody asked me one day as a consultant, she said, Debbie, this is a practice owner, why are consultants so expensive? You were only here like so many hours. And I said, you're not paying for the 2 or 3 hours I was here. You're paying for the 30 years it took me to get here.
That's right. Yeah,
And
it's so valuable, that experience, right? And
mhm.
I remember back to one of my first jobs. It was at a steakhouse where this family, the steakhouse is called Mother Webb's, and I worked in the kitchen and needed to be 16 in order to work there. And I neglected to tell them that I was 16. I didn't lie. Back to my first career choice, being a liar. I didn't lie, but I did go in and apply for the job knowing that you had to be 16, but I was 15 and a half. And so I got the job. And the first week on the job, the guy that ran the place came to me and he said, you have to be 16 to work here. And I said, oh. And he said, but it's okay, we'll make it work. And so I worked there for 5 years, actually, all the way up until the end of high school, which was great.
Yeah, it's there's nothing. I used to love to see restaurant or hospitality background for anybody who came to apply for a job for me, because it teaches you a couple of things. First of all, it teaches you how to think on your feet.
Yeah.
There's always, if you're going to be good at service, you have to think ahead, and you are conserving of your time. You think, I'm not going to walk myself to death serving this table, this table, and this table. I'm going to make one big loop. And I watch people, and I'm sure you probably do too. Anytime if you've been in it for any period of time, you watch people serve others, and you go, she has been poorly trained, or
Yeah.
she doesn't have the mindset to do this well. And then you watch others who make it look so smooth, and you go, this is an excellent server. This is somebody who knows what they're doing. Um, but I mean, I love the fact that you started an ice cream shop in Canada at 13.
Inside an igloo.
I don't know that hot chocolate would have been something I would have thought would have been more appropriate
That's
than
right.
ice cream. But tell me, did life ever throw you a curveball? You thought you were
Oh
on
my
this
God.
path, you had these businesses going, and all of a sudden it was like,
So many.
what happened?
Oh my God, so many. I mean, I think back to like, so me and a friend of mine, Zach, still my best friend in the world. We started this first IT company together, and it was really the first real business that, we had accounting and we had all the things that you needed to do. So we started this business. He had just finished university. I had just come back from spending all my money in Europe, and we made fast friends to another mutual best friend, and we decided to open this company. And so the company was going to be, the idea, it started as, it was called Student Computers. And we had a website. The idea was to sell refurbished or gently used computers to students. And so we managed to get a loan for $25,000 to start this company, and it was just me and him, and we had this money, and we decided, you know what, we should go to the city and shop for some things for our business. So we rented a U-Haul truck. We had no idea what we were buying, but we rented a U-Haul truck, drove to the city, and we've been in operations for maybe 3 weeks at this point, like just starting, just cleaning and opening, getting ready to open the store. So we go to Halifax to shop, and we go to Costco. And I'm from a small town. I don't. Costco is like a big deal to me. I don't think I had ever been there. And so we go to Costco and we see these office chairs, because Costco always has a deal on office chairs. And we're selling students computers. So I think, what else do they need? They probably need a chair. And so we see these office chairs, and they're such a great deal. I think they were $99 or $79 or something. They were inexpensive. And this is going back 20 years ago, actually 21. So we see these chairs and we decide to buy, I think, 200 of them,
Oh,
basically fill the U-Haul with them. We
oh,
had all
what?
this money. We thought they were such a great deal, and it was just an off-the-shelf Costco product. It wasn't even on special or clearance or anything. We just thought we'd buy them to sell to the students, because of course with a computer they need a chair, we thought. So we took them back and we set up at the university when all the students were coming back, and it's a small school of about 5,000 students. 85% of them live on campus. The rest of them live, in apartment houses or whatever in the town. And so we stood up there all day long. I think it was in September when they were coming back. We were up there all day long, and we sold one chair out of 200 that we bought. And so we're like, oh shit, what are we going to do? And the wise thing now, 20 years later, fast forward, would have been to drive back to Halifax, 2-hour drive with the U-Haul, even if you had to pay for the U-Haul, and return the chairs, because Costco will take anything back. But that's not what we did. We spent the next year and a half selling chairs. Luckily, we had some free space to store them. But it like the number of uninformed decisions that I've made throughout my career that are similar to this particular story are numerous. Um, and it's always fun to look back at it, because you realize some of the idiotic things that you've done, that only hindsight of a bunch of years could ever fill you in. So I've had so many of these things that have happened to me, but this one's one of the funniest.
200 chairs is an initial order, especially if you only had to drive 2 hours to go get some more of the chairs. Start out with what?
$1,000 tied up in
Yeah,
chairs. So
yeah.
I think it was
Yes, yeah.
maybe close to 100, but like half the money that we had received to start our business was tied up in inventory for chairs that nobody wanted to buy. And by the time we sold the last chair, so yeah, so I've had lots of derailments.
Yeah. Well, when I was young, I had just gotten out of college, and my my mother had my younger brother, and I was 3 years younger than I am, running one of our restaurants, and it had these big windows that looked from the main lobby into the kitchen, so you could actually see your food being cooked. And for some unknown reason, my brother and I decided that we should put some windows up there. So we got an artist to build stained glass windows. Now, this is probably 1985. And we spent close to $1,500, $2,000 on these two stained windows, one that said Huey's and the other one said barbecue. And then it had all these things, they were beautiful. My mother still has one of them in her basement because, I mean, what are you going to do with it? And the business has been closed for 30 years. But we were young and we thought that would be a great idea. And then the waitresses, we decided they needed to have uniforms, and we had these little stained glass, antique stained glass things between the booths in the restaurant that were yellow and green. And we went, oh well, let's put our waitresses in yellow and green uniforms. And these women, I'm sure, looking back on them, I thought, I'm going to kill you, because I was thin, I was small, and bright lemon yellow was fine for me. But when you had 5 kids, putting you in a bright lemon yellow uniform with a green top over it was probably not the
It's
best.
just like a torture chamber
It
working through
really, really have to apologize to all those people who worked for me when I was young and decided that this was going to be an epiphany, and I was going to put them in yellow and green and
I
make
hope this story finds.
a buttercup running around. Yeah. So yeah, I think looking back on anybody's career, you make mistakes, and I've had to apologize to my staff more than just that one time over the years for people I'd hired that were a mistake, and decisions that I made that were a mistake. But you learn, you grow, you make failures, you move
I
forward,
think
and
that's the trick. It's, ultimately it's, if you can learn from the mistakes that you make along the way. We did another interview at the start of this company, um and it was for one of the news outlets here, or some website, and I was saying that I felt as I started this company that the timing was perfect. I had all of this other experience to draw on, and I feel like, at some point in your career is the perfect point to start the thing that you're starting. And this is exactly how it felt for me starting Talkatoo. I assembled the brightest team of people that I've worked with in my entire life. We've got great core values. One of my favorite core values that we is to lead the company and to steer it is a simple one. It's no assholes. So we've got this policy that basically applies to everybody, uh, people externally and internally, and if that categorization fits you in any way, shape, or form, we just won't work with you.
yeah,
And it's because after so many years, after 20 years and various experiences along the way, you realize that life is short, and life's just not worth dealing with difficult people. And if you're lucky enough to be the captain of your own ship, you can make these kind of rules, and everybody else has to abide by them, and I think enjoy them as well.
yeah, I agree. I have people who have call me up, and basically you can tell they just want to pick your brain for free advice, and they have no intention of working with you or listening to you. And I've gotten to the point that I will tell anybody who signs a contract with me, please understand that you can get out of this contract, but so can I, because if you're not going to listen, I'm not going to beat my head against the wall, and I don't like to fail.
Yep.
So if you are not going to listen, we will both fail together, and I'm not having it. So just get
Yeah.
your mind right, listen or not, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So many times I think we're afraid to say and be definite about setting our boundaries.
Yeah.
And this is a boundary that you guys have set with your no asshole rule, and it's kind of mine that's set that says if you don't play, then we're not going to play together.
Yeah.
Now, when you started Talkatoo, you had these companies, and I mean, obviously, Google was a significant partner to have. What was the scariest part about starting it from scratch, your own
I
business?
think, I mean, yeah, the Talkatoo is an easy one for me. If I go back in my career 3 years ago, I had two successful companies. The one that had been in business for 20, the other one, had been around for 3, 4 years. Both were profitable. Uh, Collectively, I had 30 people working for me. And at the ripe old age of 40, I decided, you know what, this is not exciting enough. I'm going to let all of that go, and I'm going to start at zero. And good luck. So I think that was the scariest part for me. The scariest part was I knew that if I wanted to make Talkatoo into the company that I believe it could be, that I had to be laser focused at running this company, and that was it.
Mhm.
And so I would categorize myself as somebody that loves to multitask, somebody that loves to be too busy, somebody that loves to have way too many things on the go. And I think before starting Talkatoo and taking the leap, I thought to myself that I could potentially maybe still do that and be successful. But I realized that you can have a limited amount of success with focus missing, but anybody that's truly successful figures out how to focus on the right elements that they're working on, and give that 100%. And so the scariest part for me was leaving something that was comfortable, completely comfortable. I mean, up until I started talking to, I took 6 weeks off a year, lived in some warm country, and skipped the worst part of winter. And I had a 10-year track record of getting away from winter for 6 to 8 weeks every year. That has all stopped, with the start of Talkatoo, and I've been super focused and super busy, kind of giving this company my all to get it to the point where it's at today.
Something that you said there was basically you had safety where
Oh
you
yeah,
were. You knew, and there was security there. And then you're taking the leap into the great unknown to start a company. And I've been there, so I get it. And I started mine in 2008 in the middle of the Great Recession. And, it just, my husband looked at me one day. He said, "You've always wanted to do this. Why don't you just do it?" And I went, "Really?" And he went, "Yeah, this, no time like the
isn't it
present."
great
And I
to
went,
have people like that in your
"Let's do
life?
that." Yeah.
My business partner is the same way. He's like, if we're gonna do it, we got to do it now. And my co-founder and our CFO, he's a super bright guy, and he was the one that gave me the push. He'd been involved in two other companies that I started, as kind of a founding, kind of financial CFO, kind of business doer guy. And Ali, my partner, he's a genius. He's super smart. He's been involved in big tech companies in Silicon Valley, and he was the guy that I needed. But sometimes we just, even somebody like you or me that's got all this confidence, sometimes you just need a little push. Just it reminds me of the time that I jumped out of a plane the first time. And I looked at the guy that was telling me to jump out, and I said, "You're gonna have to push me." And the next thing I knew, I was flying towards the bottom of the to the earth.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
sometimes you just need that push, just a little tiny push. It was a pretty light push to get
Mhm.
pushed out of a plane. It doesn't take too much when you're halfway out the door, anyways. But sometimes you need that,
Yeah.
and I think it's all too often it doesn't get mentioned. It's the people that give you that little push, or not even just the push, but maybe the extra confidence. I remember one of the best things that my mother ever gave to me is I can still remember her saying it today, which is, you can do anything you put your mind to, you can do it. And I look at every day and everything that happens to me in life with that lens, which is, if you want it bad enough, you can make it happen.
Well, so many people fail because they fail to try. And there's a great deal of fear. Safety makes a difference. And your life circumstances, certainly. I mean, we can say, we look back from a fairly stable economic position to take these leaps off into the great unknown and jump out of the airplane, so to speak. But there are people who are, financially struggle, and you say, well, they certainly may not be able to start a company, but I think they certainly can go and do something that they like. And, I've talked to a lot of veterinary teams over the years, and one of the things I have mentioned to them many, many times is life is short. We don't get do overs. And if you are somewhere that you are miserable, then you need to make a change and not be afraid to make that change, because there are people out there who will make you happy, even if it's a job, if it's just the same thing you're doing right now, but in a better place with better people with no assholes, right?
Yeah.
Then go and do that. And it's it saddens me to think that sometimes people are almost hamstring by fear
Yeah.
or a change, that they won't go and just take the chance to do that. I wanted to ask you about that, because obviously your decision making process, you've worked through, giving up the safety, giving up the security, starting a company, having the confidence to know that you had something that was absolutely worthwhile for people to take advantage of. And like I said, I've certainly enjoyed it since I've been using it. But tell me about that, the ability to jump into the fire. I mean, you also are a volunteer firefighter, and I've had the really a pleasure of asking some questions of people that you kind of run across them unexpectedly, and some of them are on airplanes with me. I'm one of those people who talks to people on airplanes, so if you sit beside me, get ready for it. I'm going to talk to you. But I talked to the man who led the troops into Desert Storm, and I was flying to Washington D.C., and I had the opportunity to ask him, how do you lead men into battle, soldiers into battle, when they know they could die? Now, it's one thing to lead them into a company when they're going to, financially they're shaking, but we're talking about they could die here. And he said, Debbie, it is training and trust.
Yeah.
And those that stuck with me so much, because I feel like sometimes we don't make the atmosphere that we work in an atmosphere that people trust, that you have their back, that they're not going to be attacked for making a mistake. And then we don't train people. There's so much to do with training that gives people confidence, that gives them security and safety, and that makes them happy in their jobs. So training and trust. So when you are a firefighter, tell me about what kind of fortitude it takes to say, I'm going to run into a burning building.
Yeah. It's such an interesting thing. So, um, first off, if I had a do over, um, I think I might have been a volunteer or a career firefighter. So I've had a lot of, it's been great, just volunteering, kind of finding that, brotherhood or camaraderie that exists when you literally walk into or run into a burning building together is like something you can't find anywhere else. So I think for me and for my friends that are firefighters, and probably anybody that has been involved in that profession, they tell you that there's just something weird about us. People that will run into a burning building or put their life at danger for the sake of, I hate to say it, but it's fun to me. I enjoy it. It's when chaos happens all around me, it's partially the training, and I think partially me as a person that gets calmer and calmer. The more chaotic things get, the more calm and measured I become. And the same thing is true for me running a company. When everybody else is confused and doesn't know the right thing to do, but I'll give them something to do. And people may be chaotic, worried, or paralyzed by fear, uncertainty, doubt, whatever. That's when I'm the best. When the house is on fire, or when everything's falling down around, that's when I perform the best. And I don't know what it is or I love firefighting, and I love when things are chaotic and crazy. Um, it feels like it's the best time for me to be the most helpful.
Sean, have you ever read the book Flow?
Oh yeah, I was talking about it just today.
Yeah. So
That's
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 like what
amazing.
you're talking about. It's just the
Yeah.
chaos, but it's the laser
Oh
focus
my
of
God, I
the
can't
blood.
believe. So I was on with Ernie Ward,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
a plug for the stuff that they do today, just today, and his written a book called Chasing Fire, which it's very closely related to Flow. And the Flow book today, the cover of it, I think it's green and the writing is neon yellow or something. And that was just a couple of hours ago, Debbie. So just what an interesting synchronicity.
Yes, yes. But I've been there in a veterinary hospital. There's days when it is so busy. And I think we're finding that a lot right now because there's a high demand for veterinary care, but we are not in a state of flow, which is one of the things that's making us inefficient and a little aggravated, because we can't get into where all our training has got us laser focused and we're almost reading each other's minds and everybody knows the position and exactly what they're supposed to do exactly at the right time. There's not a wasted breath, a wasted movement, and everybody is just on it. And at the end of the day, you look up and you go, "Whoa, we did it. We did it."
Yeah. Or you look up and it's 10 after 5.
Yeah, yeah. And you didn't even know. You didn't even know it was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I that happens to me often
Mhm.
where I'll start work and it's so chaotic that it'll be 4:30 and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I was supposed to eat something
Right.
today."
Yeah. I ate lunch at 4:15 today. So yes, that's
So you can relate. This
but
is right. Yeah, it's funny.
yeah, it really is and it's absolutely a brain thing that says that when we are busy, that we um, that we will focus better. It's when we're
Yeah.
slow is when we make mistakes. It's when
Yeah,
we're goofing off
absolutely.
and can't get our mind focused into where we need to be. And we're all running around going, good grief, we can't, we're just making dumb mistakes. What are we thinking here? We're not thinking, we're just bouncing around. So in starting this company, what was your greatest challenge here? I mean, obviously you were really comfortable with the tech, but what was the great challenge of launching from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, there was so many, right? I mean, running a technology company, we seed financed this company. So between me and my partner, we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into the technology, and we're approaching $2 million that we've got invested in this thing now. So raising money is always a challenge. I mean, even if you put all your own money in, which in this case I have, um, it's still hard to separate people from their money. It's like you got to sell them on a vision. You've got to, give instill confidence. And for me, it was the first software company that I ever built. I'd been around, I'd built software before, um, but never built a company around an offering that we created from the ground up. And so I think that's it. And that will be it. I mean, you know, we're going to continue down that road. I mean, I want to turn Talkatoo into a billion-dollar business. And, we're not done that part of the business yet. There'll be many more cycles of, going to investors and getting new partners on board. And so it's a really it I think it will stay with us for quite some time, but challenging, but challenge is great. I love a challenge. Nothing like trying to do something you've never done before and succeeding at it. So yeah, I think that would be it.
Well, just a fun question. How did you come up with the name?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's like the answer sucks so bad. I wish you weren't answering the question. But well, interesting story. So once upon a time, we almost were going to be called TikTok, which is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
We almost bought the domain name, the .com. It was available, and we thought, that might not necessarily be the best. We Googled, we found a book uh, that had Tourette's, and so we decided the TikTok name. Um, but we had hired a branding company, Dashboard Marketing. It's the second time that I hired them to consult on branding. And the guys there are incredible. So they had come back to us, done a research project, and came back to us with, I think, 15 or 20 different names. And I didn't like Talkatoo. I can't believe I'm telling this story publicly. I didn't like the name. I thought, it's too cheeky, it's too this and that. But the more I heard about it as we, talked through other names, the more I started to fall in love with it. And I was like, you know what? I think people will get that. I think people will remember it. And, in a branding and marketing world, it's not necessarily the best name. It's the name that people will remember. And so I like the play on words, with cockatoo, and especially veterinarians, and, entering that vertical first for us. So I think it made to do that. And then we had to go through the journey of buying the website, and it was owned by some lady in middle America that had this business, and I couldn't get a hold of her. And, I think 50 phone calls later, I got her on the phone only for her to say no, she wasn't willing to sell us the .com. And then a couple months later, reached out to her again, thinking maybe she might have changed her mind, and was able to get to her and buy the .com. But buying a .com of a website that is memorable in any way, shape, or form nowadays is so hard and so expensive. So that's the story behind
Wow.
how we got the name. Not
Yeah.
as good as I would have. I would have loved to have told you that I made it up.
Well, but there's a process to that thing,
That's
and
right.
again,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
staying
And the process is hire people to know what they're doing.
absolutely.
You don't need to do everything yourself. And
That's
I think that
exactly
that's like one of the things that as I grow older, I remember one time I was painting a rental unit, and I hate painting. I'm not a patient person, Debbie, not even a little bit patient.
my husband hates to paint
Well,
more than
this is a
anything.
guy that I want to meet.
He would jump out of an airplane with you and absolutely agree with you on the painting because he hates to paint. And
Yeah,
me,
and I remember getting paint on something that I shouldn't have got paint on, and I was like, "What in the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this? I don't. There's people that love to do this job. Why am I doing it?" And at that point, I kind of just made this agreement with myself that I wasn't going to do things that I was bad at anymore, no matter what it was, especially if I could afford to hire a professional or somebody to do it. And so I think that that's another thing that I wish I started my career knowing is like only do things that you like to do, or
well,
try them once. And if you don't like it, don't have
don't
to
do
do
it.
it.
Right. Veterinarians are really terrible bootstrappers and they will do everything. And when I go into practices, I find them doing everything from opening the mail to paying the payroll and writing the bills. And I'm like, you could find somebody who makes $25 an hour to do that, and you are a $200 an hour person. This makes no sense. This is the art of delegation, is to send something down to a person who enjoys doing it and who is inexpensive comparatively to
Yeah,
you.
and I think that's another thing that we just don't realize as people, right? We look at a menial task that has to be done, and we're like, "Wow, no one's going to want to do this." And the reality is, like, there's people that like accounting. Like, I'm not one of them. There's
Me
people that
either.
love it.
Yes.
It's just amazing to me when you kind of like hatch and you're like, oh, I get these things now. Oh, but yeah, there's different people.
Yes.
People like different things.
Yes.
There's somebody that will like to or enjoy doing any job.
Yes.
You just got to find them. And you give somebody something to do that likes it. The difference between what you're going to get out of that person and the results that the injury or the pain that you're going to inflict into your own world life, is just so incredible. So I think that's another thing is like right people, right seat. They've got to be doing something that they like.
When I teach teams, one of the first things I do is personality profile, and it's a very simplified DISC personality. But it's very funny because when we start to talk about the things that people like to do and things that people hate to do, a lot of their personality trait has to do with this. And so those high compliance people, really, they're your accountants. They love to
Yeah.
do that. And I'm a professional speaker, and I've had so many people say, I would die before I would get up on a stage and speak. And for me, I feel lost because I can't do it now. And but it's part of my personality style. So when we find out, we had that emotional intelligence to know ourselves, know what we are strong at and know what we are weak at, and then hire our weaknesses and play to our
Yes.
strengths, then we are much wiser people. And sometimes it takes a long time to learn that, that
Yeah, like 20
yeah,
years.
20 some years.
It's
Exactly.
funny, right? Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense that these things that are obvious so long to learn in
And it
some
doesn't mean
cases.
you're not capable of doing it, because you're absolutely capable
Yeah.
of doing it. It's just that it's not your strong suit, and there are other people who are better suited to do it, who will do it more creatively or more rapidly or with more panache than you're going to do it. If,
It's so funny because it makes me think. So, we're Talkatoo, voice recognition, blah, blah, blah. That's what I do. But it's so interesting because one of the studies that I was reading recently, around burnout, it was talking about, how dictation can like increase your efficiency. And everybody looks at dictation or what we do, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. I'll take a look at it. It will increase my efficiency or give me some time back in the day or all of these other things. But the thing that came out of this study that I read, which really knocked my socks off, is that by creating more efficiency in your life, there is a parallel raising of happiness or contentment. So if you become more efficient, whether it's, you adopt Talkatoo and save half the time you're spending on medical records, if you become more efficient in any manner through any medium, there's this incredible things that happens alongside your efficiency is which is your happiness goes up. And so in a field like veterinary medicine, where you've got burnout and compassion fatigue and all of these other problems that are plaguing the industry, if our company can help people save, 5 time that they were spending in front of a computer that they absolutely hated, like guess what? You should get our software. Like it's just a no-brainer at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Well, I also think if you feel like there's always something pending that you can never get finished, you feel like the hamster on the wheel, that your spinning your wheel's not getting anywhere. And when there's a sense of accomplishment, you knock out. I mean, I can remember when you gave me my microphone and my account, and I started playing with it, and I was cranking out some emails, and it was probably 7 o'clock at night. And I said, I'm just going to run and get these emails done. And within, it seemed like seconds, I had 5 emails done and sent. And I just sat back and I went, wow, this would have taken me much more time than this. I would have missed time from, sitting with my husband and having conversation. And then it was gone. And it was something I didn't have
Yeah, I
to think
think you
about the next.
emailed me right afterwards
I
and you're
did.
like,
I said, I just used this
you're,
to talk about
you're
these
like,
emails.
one, you got to come on the bend. You got to be there. One, I just did a whole blog post in like 10 minutes. And then
Yeah,
I cranked out these 4 emails and I was
crank
like,
out all these
okay, she
emails.
gets it. I was like, we got another one.
Yeah, it's so good. So Shawn, obviously networking probably had a great deal to do with all your business successes, but what would you attribute, a lot of that to, and how do you think networking helped you?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I would say is the number one component in any business, be it technical or any business, is you have to have a little bit of salesmanship or sales skills. And if you don't have it, the best product in the world, but if you can't convince people to buy it, you don't have a business. And so I think for me, networking has always been a component of work that I really enjoy. Like you, I have a podcast. We started this podcast a year and a bit ago, and I think we over 100 episodes. And every week when we do the podcast recording, it's like my favorite part of my work week because I'm getting to meet somebody new most times that I have never met before. They're usually really interesting. So I get to be inquisitive and ask some questions. And so this whole networking component for me has been with me for a really long time. And I would say it's like one of my favorite pieces of having my own business, and God, the opportunities that it leads to, like you just, there's a friend of mine, he said, life is like living in a glass office building where your office is and your house is. And you come down the elevator and go to your office, and your office happens to be right where the elevator lets out. You're in a glass office building at this point. And he said, this is what your life is like. And every opportunity that you ever wanted comes up the elevator and gets off the elevator and walks right by your office. And in order to be successful in life, all you have to do is look up and maybe open your mouth. And so I always think of that. And that's what I think of networking. I think of networking is it's as if these people are business relationships that you haven't started yet or friends that you haven't met. And that's my approach to life. Like I'll talk to anybody. And what happens as a result of that is all kinds of great things. I was on the Veterinary Viewfinder podcast today. Tonight, I'm on your podcast. This is networking. This is what happens if you were open to the possibility of what could be, as
Exactly.
opposed to closed.
Yeah.
If you have an open mind, things just find themselves, or things find you if you let them.
Yeah. I agree. I can remember when I was managing hospitals, I always spent time with my sales reps. And I've had many managers go, "Oh, well, I don't talk to my sales reps. They have to make an appointment with me, and they just you want to waste your time." And I went, "Are you kidding? Your sales reps have entry into over 100 hospitals. You are in one. You sit down with those people and you go, what do you see out there? What do you see that people are doing that I can do that's great? I what's the newest and latest thing? Tell me what is out there in the world that I can emulate or improve upon."
Yeah.
And so I talk to them all the time. But then when I started my company, I picked up the phone and I called all those same people and I said, "Hey, you guys, here's what I'm doing. And I'd like to do some work for you if you've got anything open, some lunch and learns, or you've got clients that need some help." And they immediately put me to work.
Yeah.
And I've been working ever since.
Yeah. And it's just mindset. It's so important in whatever it is that you're doing. Like if you have a mindset which says it's possible or anything's possible, guess what? You're right. If
You're
you have
right.
a mindset that says I can't do it or it's not possible, guess what? You're right. you know and it's just so many people don't know that. And it's that's one of the reasons that I love building companies, Debbie, is because I get to take these people that maybe think it's not possible. My CTO, our CTO at our company, his name is Brendan Chan. He is one of the smartest, if not the smartest person I've ever worked with in my entire life. And sorry, Brendan, but when he started, he couldn't even look you in the eye. No confidence. um, and now this guy's teaching people, 20 years his senior, what's going on with technology that they have no idea about.
Mhm.
And that's what I love. That's what I love about running companies is you get to take people, you get to handpick them, and you get to show them all that they can be. And it's so much fun.
It's when you're leading people for growth, and it's so much fun to watch them. One of the things that I look back on my career and I see some of the kids that work for me just starting out in the kennel, and they became technicians, they became veterinarians. 9 of them own their own hospitals now. Some of them are lawyers, not liars, but lawyers. And some of them are human physicians, or, in multiple other positions. But because they started working for us and we taught them how to have a job, because they were just
Yeah.
babies, we taught them how to have a job, and we encouraged them to grow and to learn. And anytime they had an opportunity, we encouraged them to take it, rather than going, "No, I don't want you to do that. I don't want to teach you anything because I'm afraid you'll quit." I've often said I would rather have somebody wonderful for a year than somebody horrible for 10.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so what was the old Zig Ziglar says is that you hire somebody and train them, they might quit, but if you hire them and you don't train them, they unfortunately they won't. So you're stuck with them forever, and they're
Yeah.
they're horrible people. But it's growing people is a lot of fun, and for me, part of what I do as a consultant is just that. It's just one of my clients told me it was like having a wise big sister that you could call and get you out of trouble when you had questions.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I said, that's exactly what I want to be. I just want to be the wise big sister. So, what advice would you give somebody who's facing any big decision in life and trying to make that leap of faith into the void?
Yeah, good at it. The first thing I would do is step back from the decision and try to make a framework to make the decision. So, simple exercise, really. Like, maybe money is one of the things that's motivating the decision. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's more time with your family. Look at how you should make the decision and only yourself a framework to score the possible outcomes of the decision. It's a great way to look at this is if you were buying a house, what neighborhood would you want to be in? What schools would you want your kids to go to? How close would you like it to be to your work? Any life decision you can apply a framework to, and it can be really simple. And if you're not good at making these decisions, creating a framework to lean into to help you make the decision is a really easy way to get by things. So that would be the first advice. Maybe make a framework, and then the other one would just be, don't choose to do nothing. You know, do something, do anything. Don't do the same thing, especially if you're thinking you should make a change. Do anything, and maybe start small. Maybe rip the band-aid off. Just do something. I think that would be my advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything you'd like to say about yourself or your company? We're going to put how to reach out to you and Talkatoo, and I'll have an affiliate link because I'm a believer. I drink the Kool-Aid, and so that people can get a demo. And then I encourage you highly to try this because first of all, it's just kind of fun. And I was watching it. And this is the thing I'm having to train myself not to do, Shawn, is watch it type because
Yeah.
it types stuff and then it may be incorrect, but then it goes back and it wipes out the entire sentence and it puts it in. It makes perfect sense, and I'm so impressed with that. And the artificial intelligence that it has to go back and say, oh, these words are not right. Let me go clean these words up and make it right. And it really has very few errors, especially just in talking about conversation or if I'm dictating a blog or things like that. Um, but I keep finding more uses for it. I think that's the thing that's
Yeah, I think
surprising
that's a
me.
great point. And a lot of people when they think about our software, they think, "Oh, does it work in this software? Does it work in that software?" I think one thing to tell your listeners is that it works anywhere you can type. So we integrate with every veterinary practice management software, any piece of software. If you can type, you can use Talkatoo. And what I'd love to challenge any of your listeners to do is just to give it a try. We have a no risk free trial. It's 7 days. You don't even have to give us a credit card. It's not a bait and switch. We're not that kind of company. So just go over to our website and click on the free trial. Um, Regardless of your typing speed, some of our most effective and kind of power users are in that young age group, like early 30s to early 40s. And they're not the people that I would have thought would have got value out of our software. But I'm a fast typer and I don't type anything anymore. It's so much more efficient. And if you're the type of person that speaks well, can put your thoughts together well, you should absolutely give this a try. If you're the type of person that doesn't like to type, you should absolutely give this a try. If you're in the veterinary industry, you're a technician, you're a receptionist, not just a veterinarian, you should give this a try because there's no risk. And I'd love to contribute to anybody kind of cutting their medical record time in half and just maybe making themselves feel a little bit more efficient and feeling a little bit happier.
One of the conversations I was having earlier today is a friend of mine who is a mediator for animal cases, and she often mediates between veterinarians and disgruntled pet owners. And so many times the communication is what failed. The communication for follow-up or the communication with the client about exactly what they're supposed to do for aftercare. And many softwares will have some canned responses in there, but there's some unique stuff in there. And I just happened to think the other day how smart and efficient it would be to pull up Word and to have the veterinarian give these very specific take-home instructions for this particular pet in this unique situation and print that out and send that home with a client. And I really think that not only is it going to make the client feel better about having something in their hand that they can remember, but have someone who worked the front desk for many years in veterinary hospital, people will constantly go home after having been instructed, call back an hour or two later and go, I don't really understand what that doctor told me to do. Can I talk to them again? Can I talk to the technician again? And so that's a huge time suck
Yeah.
in practice, is to the redundancy of
It's a redo,
saying
right?
over and over and over again the same thing. So let's just talk it out, capture it and send it home and not have
That's
to
a great
worry
idea.
about it. Well, Shawn, it's been fun. I mean, I think we could carry on a conversation for a long time because I'm fascinated with people who are doing what you're doing. And I wish I knew more about technology. I'm enough to be dangerous and enough to be able to understand a little bit. But for me, technology is like a screwdriver, and it's a tool. And some people love to make the screwdriver. Me, I'm just good, kind of screwing the screw in the wall and throwing it back in the box and moving on. So this is my philosophy about technology. It's a tool.
Yeah.
Um, so thank you again so much for sharing your story with me. I think it's fascinating. I'm just so impressed with people who could start so many businesses successfully and then just say, I'm just going to do it again and again and again because it's fun. And it is fun when it's done right. And it sounds like, you learned a lot from the time you were 13 in the ice cream shop, and it has boded well. Your podcast, that's the Veterinary Innovation
You
Podcast?
got it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with Dr. Zach.
You
Yes,
got it.
the
That's
inventor of
us.
SmartFlow. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, we
another.
have a lot of fun with it, and I mean, for me, it's made this COVID thing suck a little less.
Mhm.
Just being able to connect with people once a week, and I'm sure as somebody that's very similar to me in a lot of ways, you're probably finding it's a bit of a lifeline for you as well.
It is. My social butterflies wings are definitely being clipped.
They're in the box.
They are. They are. I miss my conference family. I miss the interacting with my students. And so I'm very happy to have people like you who are willing to talk to me. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
very welcome. It was fun for me too.
Uh,
Like I said, I just love this stuff. So thanks for having me.
Well, we will put all the information at the end of this podcast, and it's going to be in the description so people can get in touch with you. They can get their demo for Talkatoo. And if they have any questions about jumping out of airplanes or running into burning buildings or starting a business from scratch, then they can talk to you, and we'll put your podcast link in there too, because Veterinary Innovation Podcast is pretty cool. And you're talking about all the cutting edge stuff that's coming, and it's going to save us not just time, but just make our lives better.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, there's a lot of innovation happening in vet med right now, and it's a lot of fun to kind of learn about it. So thanks so much for having me. It was my pleasure, and we'll be in touch and
Okay,
keeps talking, so you don't have to type.
that I will. I absolutely will. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Debbie.
Okay, where's my yeah? There we go. Stop my